don't get why there's this general assumption that Clemson's just going to get it all together. They lose Tony Elliott. They lose Brent Venables, who's probably the greatest defensive coordinator in the last decade. How the heck is there a general assumption? I'm not saying that it's not possible, but why does everybody just assume Clemson's going to be back in the thick of the playoffs? When you do have a Pittsburgh team that brings back the Biletnikoff Award winner, a pretty solid quarterback in Keaton Slovis, NC State loses some but returns a lot. And Wake Forest also returns a lot, dipped into the transfer portal a little bit. I know they lost Christian Beal-Smith, but we'll see how much that affects them. So go ahead and answer that for me. Why do people just assume Clemson is going to be back into the playoff?
So, Bash, I don't know who you're talking to. The feedback that I get is that everything I see from a media outlet, everything I see that comes from Vegas seems to assume exactly what you're saying. So when I see the way too early top 25 lists, whether they come from ESPN or wherever, I see Clemson number 3, number 4. I see them back right there in the running for a national championship. When I see the odds that were just read to us out of Vegas, Clemson, number 3, number 4, they're right in that range. But when I hear from people, the people that at least talk to me and leave comments on the channel, they think I tend to think it's almost an automatic thought the other direction, that they think Clemson's in decline. They went 10-3 last year. They're in decline. Like they make that one season out to be like 5 seasons. And I read the viewer comments the complete opposite, that they've written Clemson off as no longer being Clemson of 2015 through 20. I see it somewhere in between. I see a Clemson defense that's arguably going to be the best in the country. I still think it's going to be Alabama, Georgia, but Clemson's going to have a top 3 to 4 defense in the country. And they still play in a weak conference, although NC State will have something to say about Clemson advancing to a conference championship game. But the quarterback position is so sketchy. Their best quarterback's a true freshman. Now, I don't know if he's going to be the best quarterback this season, but I've seen enough of Uiagalelei that I don't know what went wrong with him last year, but who throws more interceptions than touchdown passes in these days? Nobody.
Right.
And he does. And he did, and he looked bad at the spring game. So, and it's not all on him. It's mediocre offensive line play and wide receiver play that's nowhere close to a Clemson standard of DeAndre Hopkins and Martavis Bryant and Artavis Scott and Mike Williams and all those guys. I don't know what's happening at the wide receiver position. Those guys aren't anywhere close to the Clemson standard, and the offensive line and then the quarterback put that all together. And it's an offense that was struggling to score, 20, 24 points against the BCs of the world last year.
Right. And the only player who really did live up to the standard was true freshman Will Shipley last year. Everybody else just kind of underachieved. And I kind of saw that because it seemed like Clemson had their starting 4 or 5 wide receivers were just carbon copies of one another. Frank Ladson and Justin Ross and others that might be slipping my mind right now. But I don't want to beat this drum of Clemson too much. The last thing I'm going to say about it is Trent Dilfer just absolutely went after Brandon Streeter, saying that he really doesn't develop quarterbacks very well. In fact, they regress under Streeter. Even Lawrence regressed under Streeter. And he was just talented enough to overcome that and still be the number 1 overall pick. But the word around the Jacksonville Jaguars, organization, which you can take that word as much as you with a grain of salt because the Jaguars. But they were just talking about how Trevor Lawrence's mechanics were all out of whack and just kind of goofy, and he had talent, but it was just not you saw him as a freshman versus as a junior, and it just seemed like it was a lot smoother as a freshman.